Hello everybody, in this video I'm going to be walking you through the Lab 5 assignment. Alright, so for this lab, since we touched on architectural woodwork in our previous module, I thought it would be a useful assignment to show you all ways you can incorporate complicated or custom architectural woodwork and millwork into your 3D Revit models for your projects, right? Very often, as an interior designer, depending on the type of work you'll do, you're going to run into renovations of historical buildings that have intricate custom millwork and woodwork that you will need to replicate in your 3D models and renderings. This was something that I had to do very often when I was working full-time up at Vocon in Cleveland. And this project that I'm going to be walking you through, especially, I'm just going to show you some of the renderings that I did professionally while I worked there, had a lot of custom woodwork, so like wainscoting and other types of woodwork and moldings that I had to incorporate into the 3D model to produce some promotional renderings for the owners of the building to promote their new space. All right, so it's very likely that you could also have to do the same sort of thing during your work professionally, or even on your projects going forward that you'll be working on, in school. So you might have to model some of this, and I'm going to give you some techniques and show you how you can create some pretty nice looking woodwork in your models. All right. So this project that you're looking at on the screen, this is a project called the Athlon, A-T-H-L-O-N. You can look it up if you want. But it was originally called the Cleveland Athletic Club. And so this was an old sort of athletic club building in downtown Cleveland. You can look up pictures of it. It's got a lot of character. But basically, some new owners purchased it several years ago, and they decided that they were going to restore it and renovate it and turn it into apartment buildings. Okay, so originally it had like a basketball court and a swimming pool, fitness spaces, all that. And they wanted to preserve some of that old history, but also convert it over into, I guess, luxury downtown apartments. Okay, so part of my job, they approached me and they asked me if I would be able to create some conceptual renderings that was going to show the final design so that they could put them on presentation boards and show the public what the finished space was going to look like to try to get people to sign on to leasing an apartment. All right, so this space that we're looking at right here, this is the parlor space that is in the building. And this building was very old and run down when they purchased it, and they had to do extensive restoration work to the woodwork and everything to get it looking nice. If you look up the building on Google, Cleveland Athletic Club or Cleveland Athletic Club restoration, and kind of look through some of the images, you can kind of see before and afters and find what it used to look like, because it was in really rough shape when I went through it and created my little schematic so that I could create these renderings and stuff. But it's really interesting to see the way they restored it. So this was the first one, and then we move into the next space. Here's the second one, and then the final one that I did. And I went through and I took a bunch of images. We did 3D scans of the space, and I made sure that I replicated all of the woodwork that was in this space to a T. Okay, so like all the moldings and everything are pretty much exactly as they are in real life. If you look through their photo gallery, you can see space or images of the finished space, and you'll see that the moldings are pretty close, so I was pretty proud of the job that I was able to do on this one. This area here is on another floor of the building that they wanted to convert into office space. All right, so I modeled all of this and I incorporated all of the woodwork that was existing in that space as well. All of this was done in Revit, by the way, so all the complicated geometry and shapes you're seeing, it's all possible. You can do all this stuff in Revit. Just going through, here's the additional office space off the side. But you can see some of the moldings get pretty detailed, and it's going to be likely that you'll have to, replicate the woodwork in certain instances, depending on what you're doing. Going through this space again. So you can see all the columns that are throughout the space and all the ornate moldings and different unique profiles that all the moldings have. All right, but basically our goal for this assignment is going to be showing you how you can do something very similar in a very basic sort of space. All right. All right, so to begin, what I did starting out is I went to Google, and there's a website that is really good when it comes to architectural woodwork and moldings. It's called Moldings One. So I just went to Google and I typed this in, Moldings One, and I went to their website. If you go here to downloads and you click on CAD file, that's going to take you to this page where you can hit download and download a DWG. And this file has every single molding profile that they have in stock that they can custom make. All right, so I'm going to switch over to AutoCAD and show you what that looks like now. All right, so here we are in AutoCAD. So when you open up this file, this is what it's going to look like. All right, so if you zoom in, they have all these categories here. So casing, backband, plinth block, baseboard, crown, all these different types of moldings. And if you zoom in closer, these are all the different molding profiles that they have for those different types of moldings. Okay, so if you don't really understand what a profile is, basically it's a section cut through the molding so you can see the shape of the molding, and this is what we're going to use to reproduce the molding inside of Revit. All right, so this is why I like using that site, because they give you a very good starting point in terms of ornate profiles, so you don't just have to guess on something. And this is kind of the way it would work in real life too. You would probably work with a custom manufacturer of architectural woodwork or millwork, and you would go through their catalog and select out profiles that you like, and then they would mill them for you. So what you would want to do in your renderings is have some sort of a file like this so you could pull in the profile and represent it in a rendering exactly as it would be in real life. Okay, so that's kind of the idea here. So what I did, there's going to be a handful of moldings that we need. Our basic goal is going to be to create a wainscoting inside of a residential interior, and I'll show you sort of an inspiration picture here in a minute what we're going to be going after. But what we want to do is basically go through here and pull out a few select types of moldings. And you don't have to do the exact same ones that I did. You can do some different ones if you like. But we're going to need 4 different types of moldings. Okay, so let me see if I can undo some of the things I did here so you can see what I selected. All right, so what I did over here off to the side, I basically grabbed moldings from these different categories that I wanted, and I copied the profile that I liked over here off to the side, and I grouped them all together in one area. So if you zoom in, these are the numbers of the ones that I selected for each type. And I got pretty much all of them except for maybe one from this category right here where it says in stock moldings. All right, but I'm going to give you just a CAD file of these 4 moldings, so you can replicate exactly what I'm going to be doing and do exactly like I do. That's fine. If you want to go in and download this full AutoCAD file and select your own moldings, you can do that as well, but you don't have to at all. You can go as far or as simple with this as you want, but basically you're going to need a crown molding, a baseboard molding. This is just a small detail molding, and then this one I pulled from over here where it says panel, mold, and base cap, I believe. Yeah, so I pulled it from over here in this section right here. So you're going to need a profile from this category over here, panel, mold, and base cap, if you decide to do something different than I did. The other one that I did, that little detail one, let me see if I can figure out where that came from. So that last molding I pulled from down here where it says small moldings. All right, so right there. And that one is right here, 5002. So anything from this category if you're wanting to do sort of your own thing. All right, but you want to take one molding from each of those categories and you want to copy it over here off to the side. All right, then once you have those, you want to highlight them and copy them to your clipboard, so Control C. Then you want to make a new AutoCAD tab and you want to paste them in and you want to put them close to the origin, just somewhere in here. So now, like I said, this file right here I'm going to be supplying you. So all of that previous stuff you really don't have to worry about. You can kind of just do exactly as I did. But what you want to do, if you're doing it on your own, you want to explode all of these and make sure that they're individual lines, and you just want to delete out these numbers right here and then save the file. All right, so something like this is what we are going to attempt to replicate. Now obviously the molding profiles are going to be different. I just want to give you sort of an idea of the types of moldings that you would need if you were trying to replicate something like this on a real project. Okay, but what we have selected for our purposes is a baseboard and then a detail molding for around the edges of these panels, and then our crown molding at the top, and then this molding right here that's going to be running along the top of the wainscoting. All right, so now here I am in Revit. What you want to do is open up the file that I've posted to Blackboard. So that file is going to be the Lab 5 starter file. And when you open it, you should see something similar to what I have here on the screen. This is a 3D view, just the default 3D view. And if I kind of orbit around, you can see what we're working with. So I basically, let me toggle to the floor plan really quick. I've created just a very basic 10 by 20 space, and I put a few windows in it, and I gave it a wood floor. Ceilings are 10 foot high, and we are going to be going in and adding in wainscoting around the perimeter on these 3 walls, okay? And the final image is just going to be like a 3D section perspective like we did for Lab 4, and you're gonna show me basically that you created the wainscoting sort of the same way that I have it here. All right, so to get started, what we need to do is go up here to File, and then we need to go to New and Family. Within your Select Family template, you want to scroll down until you find the family that is just called Profile. All right. Once you get that, go ahead and open. And that's just going to bring you to a blank family file. The next thing we're going to do is go to our Insert tab, and we are going to click on Import CAD. Okay, so then what we want to do is navigate to our CAD file that we created. So like I said, my CAD file is going to be posted for you guys to use on Blackboard. So you can go ahead and just use the molding profiles one that I have posted on Blackboard if you want. But again, if you want to make your own, that's totally fine. Once you load that in, you should see something like this, very similar to what we had in AutoCAD with our four molding profiles that we have selected, okay? The next step is going to be selecting this and unpinning it. And to select it, you want to make sure that your select pin elements is disabled. So if this little button right here is on, you want to turn that off so you can actually click on this. We'll unpin it. And then we want to go up here and we want to explode this, okay? So now we'll basically be working with all of these profiles individually, okay? So our first step, we're going to highlight these three here, and we're going to copy these to our clipboard, but delete them out of the file. So I'm going to hit Control X. That's going to copy it to my clipboard, but it's going to remove them from the file. Then I'm just going to focus on this crown molding profile. I'm going to select that whole thing and I'm going to move it, and I want to move this from this point here down so that it is perfectly aligned with the origin right there. Okay, so if you're looking at this template that we've chosen, you want to envision this vertical line as your wall, okay? So just think of this as the face of the wall, and you want to orient the molding the way it would be installed onto a wall in section view. All right, so once we have this, that's all we have to do in this file. Just go up here and click on File, and then Save As, Family, and then we will choose a location for this. If I can figure out where I save my stuff. Gonna create a new folder. And then we can just call this crown molding. Click Save, and that's it for that one. Then we can highlight this and delete it. Then we can click Control V and we can paste in our other moldings, okay? So now we just repeat the process. So we're gonna go in here, we're going to highlight these two, we're gonna Control X, then we are going to move this one down into the bottom corner. Actually, I'm going to turn on my overlay so you can see what I'm doing a little bit easier. There we go. Now you should be able to see my mouse and keyboard. All right, so once we have this like that, let's go ahead and let me think here. Let's go ahead and save this. We might need to modify it here in a little bit, but let's just save it how it is for now. So File, Save As, Family, and then we'll just call this Wainscoting Cap. Click Save. That's it for that one. So highlight it and delete it. Then we're gonna Control V, paste back in our other two moldings. I'm going to highlight this one and do the same thing. So Control X to get rid of that one. We'll do that one in a minute because we got to do something a little bit different for this one. Now, this baseboard is backwards. So we want to highlight this and we want to mirror it so that it's facing the correct direction. So I'm just going to randomly mirror it over this point, and then I will delete out the original. Then what I need to do is change this slightly. So I'm actually going to highlight over the back end of this, and I only want to get these few line segments on the back here. Okay, and I'm just going to delete those out. Next, what I want to do is actually make this 3/4 of an inch deeper. And you're going to see why I'm doing this, or the reason I'm doing this, in a little bit here. But let's just go here to the Create tab, click on Line, and then click this point down here and type 3/4 of an inch. Whoops, let me get that straight. Like that. And then I'm going to drag this straight up till it is aligned with this. I'm going to click once. Now I want to delete out this line segment here, and I just want to extend this line segment manually so we only have one line segment at the bottom, and that's just going to make it work a little bit better. Then this one up here, click on that and drag it until it meets this one here. Next, just select it and let's move it down to the bottom right corner. All right. Once we get this in the project, there is going to be some errors that we're going to have to reopen this and manually fix, but I'm not going to do that now, just so you can see what those errors are, so that if you run into them on your own projects, you know how to fix them, okay? So let's go ahead and save this file, save as, family, and then we'll just call this one baseboard. Save it. Now, if you were doing a baseboard molding somewhere, and this is going to be very common in projects, you just want to include baseboard, typically. Obviously, you wouldn't want to make the profile look like this, but since we're specifically going to be using this with the wainscoting, you want to sort of do what I did here and add this extra distance on the back. But if you're doing a regular baseboard, again, just copy a baseboard profile in and you would just butt it straight up to the edge here, and then you would copy that as it is into the project. So now let's do the last one. So highlight that again and then paste to get the final profile. And I'm going to do something a little bit different with this one. Okay, so we're going to use this one in a little bit of a unique way. Let me move this off to the side. What I want to do now is go back to my Create section, and I'm going to use my line tool. I'm going to start at the origin, and I'm going to draw a line up 4 inches. Then I'm going to draw it to the right 3/4 of an inch, then back down 4 inches, and then reconnect it here at the origin. Next, what I want to do is select this, and I want to, let's see, I want to move this upward. Doesn't really matter how much, I just want to make enough room in here to fit this molding in below. Next, I'm going to mirror this. So I'm going to click on mirror, and I'm going to just mirror this down, and I'm going to delete this one here out. Once I've done that, I'm going to highlight the molding, use my move tool, and I'm going to click on this point here at the bottom left-hand corner. Then I'm going to move this down here where it intersects exactly with the origin. This might be a little bit tricky, so you might have to move twice. So I'm going to align it first here, and then I'm going to move it again to the left until it is perfectly on those 2 line segments. Then what I'll do is I'm going to delete out this line segment here, and I'm going to grab this. I'm going to use my move, and I'm going to move it down until it hits this intersection point here. Once I have that, I'm going to drag this line segment back until I get it close-ish. Relatively close, okay? We're going to fix this in a minute because this isn't actually intersecting like it looks. And then I'm just going to delete out this line segment here, grab this, and extend it all the way down. Okay, so for this spot, what you need to do is click on this arc here, and then click on this end point where it says drag line end. You want to pull it away, and then you want to hover back over there until you get this pink square snap, and then you want to release it. And then it's going to be snapped correctly to that segment. All right, then the last thing we want to do is highlight this entire bottom part, and then we want to use our mirror tool. Let me turn off the copy function, Actually, no, I do want to leave that on for this. And then we want to hover over the midpoint of this line segment right here, and we are going to drag straight to the right, and then we're going to mirror that upward. Then we just have to clean up our little intersection here. So we'll delete out this line segment, and then we'll just grab this and drag it straight up until it closes off that shape. Okay, so this is basically what we were looking for right here. Now, like I said with the baseboard, this one is also going to generate a little bit of an error that we will have to manually come back in later and fix, but don't worry too much about it now. All right, so now we're gonna save this. So File, Save As, Family, and we're going to call this one Wainscoting Rail. Just like that, click on Save. Okay, so that should be all we need to do for now. So we're gonna jump back to our project. And then once we're in our project, we're gonna go up to Insert, and then Load Family, and we're gonna navigate to where we have saved those. So here, and I'm just gonna select now all of these, and I'm gonna click on Open. Actually, maybe it won't let me do them all. Usually it does, but there we go. So now all of them should be loaded into the project, okay? All right, so the next part is actually using these profiles and putting them where they need to go and creating the wainscoting. Well, actually, no, that's not true. There's one more step we have to do first. So I'm going to be splitting this wall in half using maybe a new tool. I'm not sure if you've used this or not before in the past. But if we go here to our modify tool, or our modify bar, there is going to be a tool here called split face. All right, so what split face does is it lets us create a region on any face, so usually like a wall, and we can basically split the material that we apply to that face, okay? So this is very good for painting wall faces different colors, okay? So I'm gonna use split face, and I'm going to hover over my wall on the edge until I see this blue selection, and that says the basic wall there, generic 8-inch face. Then I'm going to click on it. Once I've clicked on that, it's going to take me to a sketch mode. So I'm going to sort of switch over to my front view here, if it'll let me. There we go, toggle to front. And we want to draw a line here. So if you look at really closely, you can see I have an orange line on the outside face of this exterior wall, and then I have another orange line here on the inside face here. When we do a split face, we have to draw our line that we're splitting the face by, and it has to perfectly extend from one segment to the next. So I'm going to start here at the very bottom, and I'm going to draw my line all the way to the right from the outside face of the exterior wall on the left side to the inside face of the exterior wall on the right side, right there. Once I've made that, I'm going to click on it, and I'm using my move tool, and I'm going to move this up by 5 feet. All right, so before we click OK, we have a couple things we need to fix. So another big no-no with this split face tool is if you have openings in the middle of the face, like these window openings, see these orange lines here, that's going to generate an error. So you actually have to divide this into 3 sections. So there's going to be a section here until it hits this orange line, nothing here for the window, another section here in the very middle, nothing here for this window, and then one more section here on the right side. So to do that, I'm going to use my split element tool. Actually, might be able to use split with gap here. No, it doesn't let me. Just use the split element tool. Hover over the point here on the window and click twice. So once here and then once here just to split out a segment. Then again on this window, once here and once here. Then hit escape a couple of times. Hover to find that small line segment there and here and delete them. After we've done that, we can click on these line segments and we can manually pull these back until we are perfectly aligned with our orange line on either side. So there, and then here, and one more right here should do it. Then we're just going to click the green check mark, and when we do that, we should get no errors and we should be back in our regular mode, but we should see that the wall now has this black line running through it, okay? And that's going to allow us to apply different materials to the different faces. I'm just going to quickly do the same thing now for these two walls on the ends. So I'm going to play with my section box here a little bit, crop that off, go here to my left view. Going to use actually I might be able to do this in 3D now. Might be a little bit easier. Split face again using the modify tab, hover over the edge of my wall. Then I can click on that endpoint. I can drag to the right until I hit my horizontal line there. And then if I want to switch to the left view now, I can click on this and I can copy it till I'm at that orange line, and then make sure that it hits this end point for this orange line here. Then we can click OK. Actually, there's the error that you'll get if you're not doing it correctly. So we're going to hit continue, and we're going to click on this, and we're going to extend this so I can see I didn't make it all the way to that orange line there. So I'm just going to now extend this all the way so it hits. Click OK, and there we go, that works. Then we're just going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So pull that, then I will pull that shut. Then I'll, again, split face, click on that. We'll see if I get my intersection. This one doesn't want to give me the intersection, so we'll just have to do it manually. Toggle to the right view. Start here at this corner, go all the way here to this end segment, click on the line, then use the move tool, move it up 5 feet. Then we're going to use the split tool again. Split, click to segments, escape, click on the little line, click on this segment here, drag it back to the orange, make sure it's hitting. Then zoom in here, drag this one back to the orange, make sure it's hitting. Then when we're good, click on the green check mark. Okay, let me adjust my section box a little bit. All right, so that's the first step. Next thing we want to do is actually create some materials to apply paint colors to this. Okay, so we want the top to be its own paint color. Then the wainscoting, we're going to leave like a white paint color. All right, so what we want to do is go up here to our Manage tab, then go to our Material Editor. Once we're in our Material Editor, I'm going to, let's see here. I'm just going to create a new material, right click, rename, and I'm just going to call this wall paint, and then just choose a color that you want. So I'll call it blue, I guess. And then just click off of it, and then let's find that again. So there we go, wall paint blue. Select it, then go to the appearance section. And then if you remember from lab 4, I mentioned that these materials with the little triangle on them are old materials and they don't render as nice. So I want to swap this asset out to make it a little bit nicer. So we're going to click on replace this asset. Then I'm just going to choose this default ABS white, and I'm going to replace it with that. And that'll give us something to work with now. So now over here, what I've done on Blackboard, you should see a few different texture files that I've uploaded. We're going to use those texture files to create a new material, okay? So where this says color, let's go ahead and click on this little drop down arrow, and let's set that to image. All right, then we're going to find wherever we have saved those textures. So go ahead and download them and place them somewhere. And we're going to click on texture, and the one that we want to use in this case is this one that says clean texture or clean plaster texture base color. So we'll click on open. And then what we want to do is go down here where it says relief pattern, and we want to check that on. When you check that on, you want to choose the other texture, which is called clean plaster texture seamless height. All right, so click on open. So this height image here, this is basically called a bump map. Okay, this is going to, when you render this, make the wall actually look like it has a little bit of texture and bumpiness to it, so it'll actually catch the light and look a little bit nicer. I'm going to expand this a little bit, and then I'm going to take this translucency and I'm going to turn that off. Then I'm just going to make a couple of adjustments to this so you can see this looks a little bit too glossy, so we can turn down the reflectance, we can turn up the roughness a little bit so that it looks a little bit more appropriate. And then we also might want to adjust the scale. So if you click on this drop down and click on edit image, you can change the scale that this is going to be displayed at. I think 1 foot by 1 foot is probably okay for this, so I'm just going to leave that as is. I'm going to go here to the drop down for the bump map, and I'm going to click on edit image, and then I'm going to go in here and take a look at this. So you can see sample size. The sample size on the other image was 1 foot by 1 foot, but if you look at this, this one is 1 inch by 1 inch. So we want to fix that. You want them to be the exact same. So I'm going to set this one to 1 foot here. Make sure that says 1 foot, and then you can see this little depth setting. 1 inch might be a little bit too high. Maybe we'll do like 0.25 inches and just see what that does. So set that and then click OK. Done. Now, usually, depending on the type of material, there is a setting here to apply a tint, so you can actually change the color of this. Let me figure out where that is. All right, actually I'm unable to find the color, the tint. I think they might have taken it out of these newer materials. So something that you can do instead, and it's probably just going to look just fine if you actually render this, which you don't need to for this assignment. You can optionally for some extra cred if you want, just like Lab 4. But what we can do is just take off the image from the base color and just leave that a color, and just let our bump map down here make the image look a little bit nicer when it renders. So just come in here and then just choose a color that you like. Doesn't matter too much. And then once you're happy with the color that you chose and you're happy with these settings here for the reflectance and stuff, you can go ahead and you can just click apply. And then I'm going to do one more material here. So I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to duplicate it. And when I duplicate this, let's see, let's rename this trim paint will be easy. Then we're going to have to, again, locate this within the browser. So it's up here now. Something you always have to do when you duplicate a material like that. So if you look up here, you're going to see this little hand with this number 1 right here. You want to make sure this says number 0. And the way to do that is click on this little button here that says duplicate this asset. That's going to switch this to a 0. The reason you want to do that is because if you don't and you change the color here of this material, it's going to do the exact same thing to the old material that you duplicate it from. So you always have to click this when you duplicate a material in Revit, or else it's going to mess everything else up. So now that we're here and we duplicated that, I'm going to take the relief pattern off of this, and then I'm going to, let's see, edit the color. So I'm going to switch this now I'm going to drag this all the way to the bottom to just make it gray, and then I'm going to drag up, and I'm going to do slightly off-white, so you could even make this like a little bit of a creamy hue if you want to, so something sort of like that. Here's my numbers that I have here. If you want to just copy those and enter these here, that'll do the exact same one. So some sort of like a little off-white color is fine, and then you can make this maybe a little bit less reflective, and that it's going to be like a sort of semi-gloss paint color. So something like that should be good for what we're doing. So then I'll just click apply, and then we'll click OK, and that should be all we need. Okay, so now I'm going to use the paint tool to apply the paint color up here on the top half of the walls. So maybe you've used the paint tool in the past. If not, here's a good time to get some practice with it and use it because it's really handy. So if you want to do something very simple like this and change the paint color of walls without having to go into the wall structure and mess with it, a good way to do that is using the paint tool. So it's this tool right here under modify. We're just going to click on paint. It's going to bring up this little material browser. Then I'm going to click on wall paint blue, and I'm going to hover over until I just get that top section of wall, and I'm going to click, and you'll see that it only paints the top part of that wall blue, just how I want it. And then everything else down here is going to stay white. Down below, I'm going to click on trim paint, and I'm going to paint this bottom portion with my trim paint. Okay. Then I'm going to click on done. Now, something to note, and this doesn't really matter for this assignment, but down the road, if you ever do use the paint tool and you decide to go in and change the material of a wall, and the material, maybe you're trying to edit the material of the wall structure, you know, by clicking on the wall and then clicking edit type and going in here to structure and doing it that way. So you can see when I changed the face of the wall, this still says gypsum wallboard here for the structure. So it's not actually changing the material of the wall itself. It's basically just doing an override on top. So it still says gypsum wallboard, but it's just changing the appearance and overriding it. Okay, so if you were then to go in where I just was and change that material there, since it's being overridden, nothing is going to change. And sometimes on projects this can get confusing, especially if we didn't split the wall here and it was just a full color blue on the wall and you're like, why can't I get this material to change? Well, usually that is caused by somebody has gone in and they've used the paint tool. And the only way to undo that override is to click here on paint tool, click the down arrow, and use the remove paint tool. So if I click on that and then click on one of these faces, it's going to remove the paint for me. And now this material right here should be gypsum wallboard, okay? And if you hover over a face too, it's only gonna let you click on faces that have been painted. So you can see if I hover over this, it doesn't highlight blue or anything, but it highlights blue here because it's actually been painted on. So I know that that face has been painted. And it'll tell you the material too if you just let it sit there, so you can see painted with trim paint. So that's just something to keep in mind. To undo paint, you have to use the remove paint tool, okay? There's not really another way around it. But I'm gonna click escape and I'm going to undo what I just did. So make that blue again. All right, so that was it for the setup. Now we're actually going to create the trim. All right, so to do that, we're gonna use maybe a new tool, another new tool, hopefully, that you've maybe not seen before and you can get some practice with. If you go here to wall, in the past, pretty much all you've probably been doing is just clicking on the picture of the wall. But if you actually click the drop down, you're gonna get some more tools here. So what we want is this one called wall sweep. All right, so if we click on wall sweep, and you hover over wall, you can basically see what that's gonna do. So it takes a profile, if I zoom in here, if you look at the end of this sort of ghosted shape, it's just like the profile of a box that's basically being extruded the entire width of the wall. All right, so that is our profile, and we're going to be swapping out, instead of a box shape, we're going to be swapping in those profiles that we created for the different moldings, all right? You can also set this to vertical. So if I do that here, you can see now it is shifted to a vertical orientation. So that's how we're going to be building our wainscoting. Just a series of these vertical and horizontal wall sweeps, okay? So let's set this to horizontal. Then let's go in and start creating our different types of molding, okay? So I'm going to click on Edit Type here, and I'm going to click on Duplicate, okay? So now the first one I'm going to do, I'm going to name this one Crown, or crown molding, I guess. All right. Then I want to uncheck Cuts Wall, and right here where it says Profile, I want to set this to the crown molding. Okay, so find crown molding. And then down under Materials and Finishes, we're going to set this to be our trim paint. So you can type in trim, paint, and hit enter, and that should set it. Then we can leave that as is. Now we're going to click duplicate again. And we're going to do, now let's see, our baseboard. Click OK. Then we're going to just switch our profile now to baseboard. Then we will duplicate again. And this one we're going to call wainscoting cap. Click OK. And change the profile now to the wainscoting cap profile. Then do it one more time, and this one's going to be wainscoting rail. Okay. Then once you have that, go ahead and click OK, and then change the profile now to wainscoting rail. All right, once that's done, go ahead and just click on OK at the bottom. And then we should be taken back to our model and be ready to place our different sweeps, okay? So I'm going to click Escape now to back out of this, and I'm going to switch my type to something different, okay? So the first one I'm going to do is baseboard. So when I have the baseboard, you can see I'm getting this little bit of an error here on my indicator. See, so it's not letting me place it. And this is the error I was referencing earlier that I knew that we were going to get. So we're going to have to go back into the baseboard profile, and we're going to have to tweak it slightly to get it to work. So if I were to try to click, you can see could not create wall sweep. Proper sweep geometry creation failed. The reason it's doing this is because there's a lot of really detailed little lines within that profile that we copied over from AutoCAD. And the way Revit works is it has these very strict tolerances for line segments. So if something is like too small, it's not going to want to generate it properly. All right, so what we want to do is go into our profile for the baseboard, and we're going to tweak it slightly. Then we're going to load it back in, and this should work just fine. So click on Cancel, and then let's go to File and then Open, and you want to go to your, let's see, it might even appear here in recent documents. So you want to find your baseboard and open that up so that we can edit it. All right, so here we are in our baseboard. So the problem is occurring due to these little line segments here. So this line segment is way too small for Revit to even know what to do with. So we're going to have to go in and kind of, even some of these two we'll have to mess with slightly to get them to work a little bit better. So since we have a basic idea of how this is supposed to look, it's not going to be too hard to make something that looks similar that Revit will accept. So what I'm going to do is go to the Create tool, use my Line tool. Then I'm just going to click on this point here, and I'm just going to flatten this out. All right. Or I might even draw it just straight up like that will be fine. Something there, just lop off this curve. So it doesn't really like these weird curves either, usually. So we'll lop that off. Next, I'm going to click Create again, and I'm going to use my line. And I'm going to click here on this endpoint, and I'm going to draw straight up. And you can see, here's an example of those small tolerances. So it's giving me the little error indicator on my cursor. It doesn't like that. You have to make sure the line segment is longer than that. So here in this instance, it's long enough, it's accepting it. So somewhere in here is fine. So let's just take this right here off, because that's not really going to be a big deal. Next thing I want to do is kind of redo this and make it sort of like one line segment, ideally. Well, actually, let's just see what happens. We can always come back in and change this if we need to. What I'm going to do now is click on this segment down here, click on this endpoint, and then drag it until I get an endpoint intersection with my little line segment there. And then up here, we're going to have to fix this, though. I know this is going to be a problem. So these two line segments here, we're going to click on these. We're going to, actually, let's keep those right now. Let's go to the line tool and let's use this spline. And then I'm just going to basically click roughly over where this starts and stops. Actually, there's the endpoint right there. And then I'm just going to create a few little endpoints sort of along where this one is. So maybe like 4 of them, one there, and then one here at the end. And once I have that, click escape a couple times. If you click on your little line, then you can grab these endpoints and you can drag these until everything lines up pretty closely with the existing one. So we're just going to pull these and bend them around until we get something like pretty consistent with what we had originally. So now that we have that, you just want to find the 2 original line segments. So if I just do a selection box up here on this part and delete it, then do another one down here to find the second one and delete that out. Now you can see we have just a single one that's remade, and that should work. So let's try this. We might have to tweak this as well, but we'll just see if it gives us a problem, and if it not, we'll come back in and do what we need to. But we can just load this in a project, make sure you have the correct project selected if you have multiple open, and then click OK. And then I'm just going to click Overwrite Existing Version. Everything should be fine. Now if we go to our Wall tool and click on Wall Sweep, and we switch to Baseboard, if we hover over the wall, now you can see it's going to let us make it because it's accepting it. So align this with the very bottom of the wall and then click once, and then it's giving you a little error indicator. But if you hover over this section of wall, you can click again, and then if you hover over this section of wall, you can click again, and it's going to automatically create that baseboard for you and wrap it around. Now if I just click escape, you can see it made the baseboard for me, and that actually looks pretty good. So we're not gonna have to go back in and edit it. So now you can see we have a baseboard kind of wrapping around the room, which is pretty cool. Next, we're gonna do the same thing for the molding that goes up here around the top where the wainscoting meets the paint. So let's go back to wall and let's go to wall sweep. Then we're going to change our molding type to wainscoting cap. All right. So I'm going to get this aligned. We'll do it somewhere here a little bit below because we're going to move it manually in a minute. So we'll click here to do the first one. Then we're going to come over here and click again to do the second one. Then we're going to come over here to do the third one. Then we'll hit escape, and it should make it for us exactly how we want it. So that looks pretty good. The only thing we need to do is click on this and move it upward till the top of this aligns with this line. So I'm going to click on move, and I'm going to have to go to a 2D view for this. So I'm going to click on the front view, and let me redo my move here. Move, click on the top edge and then move it straight up, and then click on the top edge there, and that should work just fine. So now you can see it's aligned, but we're going to have to tweak this so that it's not intersecting with our window trim. So if you click on your molding, you're going to get these little blue grips here anywhere there's an opening. So you just want to click on this and you want to drag these back. So just drag them all the way back, and then go in with your align tool and make sure you're selecting the edge of the trim. So click there, and then if you hover over the edge of your molding, you can click that and it's going to align it. All right. Then I'm just going to click escape a couple times and then just do the same process again and work your way around the room. So click there and then click there, clean that one up. Do it again for this one. So just pull it back, align tool, get a little bit better angle on this so I can see what I'm doing. So there to there, escape a couple times. Click there and then click there. So this can be a little bit time consuming and tedious, but if you're doing this for rendering purposes and you're trying to get this to look pretty nice, then that's kind of worth it to put in the extra steps to do this, okay? Because you'll end up with a really good looking end product for your presentations. Let's see if I can get a little bit better angle on that. There we go. Click on that, and then one more here on this end. So escape a couple times, pull that back, and align there, and one more alignment right there. Okay, and that's how we want it to be. Okay, so that does it for the top and bottom. Now, to sort of explain really quickly why I put this extra thickness here on the baseboard. So normally when if you would be doing this in real life, what we're showing here at the bottom, this white section of the wainscoting, that would actually be maybe a 3/4 inch panel that would be sitting off of the face of this blue wall, okay? So you would have this entire panel. Then over top of that, you would be putting all your different moldings. So you'd be putting the baseboard at the bottom, then all the rails, and then your cap at the top. And that would just be basically sitting on top of it. And you would have a little bit of thickness here. So like 3/4 of an inch, it would be sticking out here, all right? But doing that in Revit is a little bit more complicated. And it really doesn't matter too much because usually if you'll be doing this, it's mainly for rendering purposes just to look good. So you can get away with just letting the bottom portion of the wall, by splitting the face of it, letting that give the appearance that it is a panel that is actually sitting behind the rest of this molding. So what I do is just add that thickness onto some of these moldings here. So that everything looks correct whenever you're going to render it. But it's really just a illusion, I guess. You're not actually modeling it how it would totally be in real life, but it's going to be good enough for the purposes that you need. In reality, if you had to do a detail of this, you would probably just draft something up in AutoCAD anyway. You really wouldn't use the section of the molding that we're creating here. So it's not too big of a deal. Okay, so the final thing that we have to do is add in our rails. All right, so to do this, again, we're going to go to Architecture. We're going to go to Wall. And, actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and add in our crown molding because that's really easy. So we'll go to Wall Sweep. Set that to crown molding, and then hover over the top until we get this. We'll pull it down and then we'll move it manually. So we'll just do these 3 sides here. 1, 2, 3. Click Enter or Escape. Then we're going to go to a 2D view again. Click on the molding, and then we're just going to move it. Click on one of the edges and then move it straight up. Like that. And there you go. Now we have our crown molding up in here. That looks pretty good. Okay, so the final thing is going to be now the rails to actually make these look like panels. So again, back in Architecture, we'll go to Wall, and then we're going to go again to Wall Sweep. We're going to switch this to Wainscoting Rail. So this is going to let us place it, but this is going to generate another small type of error that we're going to have to manually fix. But again, I wanted to leave it in there so that if you run into this, you know sort of what you need to do to correct the problem. All right, so I'm going to start with the vertical rails. All right, so no, actually, let's start with horizontal because I'm just going to do there's not too many of them. So we'll stick with horizontal really quickly. I'm going to put one right here, and then I'm going to continue that around the perimeter of the room, just like that. Then hit enter to confirm. Okay, so here's the small error I was referring to. So you can see on this rounded face here and this rounded face here, this geometry is not being generated correctly. So it's actually like see-through. So if you were to render this, it would look bizarre. So this is something we're going to have to fix, but we can easily put this into position and get it where it needs to be, then just edit the profile, load it back in, and it's going to fix itself. So I'm going to go to a front view here, and I'm going to find that molding. So right here is that molding. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to move it, and I'm going to click on this edge right here at the bottom of this little detailed molding. I'm going to move it up and actually embed it into the cap. So there's going to be a little bit of an overlap here, but it's going to look fine. And that's just for simplicity's sake, so that you don't have to you can just include this all in a single molding. So we're just going to overlap that slightly and embed it. And then once we do that, we're just going to have to go around these edges here, and we're just going to do the same thing we did before. And we're just going to drag these, and we're going to clean this up and align it and stuff. So you can watch me do this, or you can just skip ahead a little bit in the video to where I've completed it. But I'm just going to go around and do the same thing where I'm just aligning this to the edges of the window casing. All right, so now that we have done that, we can go in here and add in the vertical pieces. All right, so that this is going to look a little bit better. Well, no, we're going to copy this. So let's just copy this one, go back to a front view, click on the molding, and then we're going to copy this down till it touches the baseboard. So we're going to click here at this point now, and this is going to overlap the baseboard at the bottom a little bit and sort of be embedded into it like that. Okay, now we'll go in here and we will create the vertical pieces. So again, actually a trick you can do is click on this molding and then type CS on your keyboard for create similar. Then choose the vertical option, and we're going to go around and create these vertical pieces. All right, so there's one right there. After you place it, just hit escape, and then we're going to drag this line segment down. I'm just going to drag this one up now, so we have something like this. Then I'm going to go into my align tool and use that. So I'm going to go to modify and then align. I'm going to zoom in, and what I'm looking for is, let's see, this edge here. So if you look at the end of this molding, there's a little bit of a lip, a flat lip that sticks out. That's what we're looking for. So I'm going to click align. Then I'm going to align the bottom of this molding with that. Then we're going to do the same thing at the top. So if you zoom in really close, there's this little lip here. Whoops, let me undo that. Get that little piece, and now zoom into the top of this and then click Align, and that is going to place that there. Next, I'm going to condense my section box a little bit, switch to my right view here. Also, you could do all of these in 2D if you want. You could set up some section views and do all of this work in 2D. I just find it a little bit easier to work totally in 3D for stuff like this. So now I'm going to use my move tool, and I'm going to click on this edge right here. So this little corner where this is sort of like forming a 45-degree angle. Click on that, move it all the way to the right till I hit my door casing or my window casing, and that's just going to kind of overlap with that a little bit, all right? So that we don't get like this weird little niche back in there where the molding is. So then, let's see, we're going to need one more piece of horizontal molding under this window. So what we can do is click on that and do a CS and then click on horizontal. Then I'm just going to place one piece of molding right there. Click escape, then click on these, drag them inward. And this edge is going to be aligned right there with that edge so that we get a nice little sort of mitered appearance. Then we're going to click on this and we're going to move it upward until this edge aligns with the bottom of our window casing, just like that. Then what you can do is just align this edge of the window with this edge of the rail. Okay, then all you need to do is copy this. So I will click on copy, and I need to select this edge right here. So let's zoom in really close, get this corner right there. Go over to the right, and you want to place this right where this molding is hitting this side of the window, right there. There we go. And then we're going to have to put one more in the very corner. So again, copy. And we're going to zoom in again, and we're going to find this edge here. So that's where this is becoming flat again. So we're going to copy this from that point until we are hitting, let's see, we'll just copy it right here, just over the right a little bit. Then we'll use the align tool, and we will make sure we're selecting this face of the wall. So if I hover over the edge, I can get that face. And then we're gonna zoom in till we get that little piece there, and then we're gonna hit align. Let's see, so what's my error? Oh, it's outside of this wall. So I went a little bit too far with my alignment, so I'm going to have to let's see, tweak this a little bit. This might actually be better to do in 2D. So I'll just show you the other way we can do this. If you go to a level 1 floor plan, then you go to the section tool and you create a section right here, right in front of your wall. Then you just toggle to that. Now it's going to be maybe a little bit easier to actually do these alignments. So if I click align, I want to get this. Actually, no, I know what I need to do. You need to click on this, and we're actually just going to move this from the very edge till it hits the wall there, and we can leave it like that. That'll be fine, because this little detail will be buried in the corner, so we don't have to worry about that. While I'm here, I'm just going to copy one of these over and fill the other side too, even though we won't really see it. You could just copy that to the right until we hit that edge right there. Okay, I'm going to switch back to my 3D view. Now I need to do the same thing across all these other areas. Okay, so we're just going to go in and we're going to, again, CS. Make sure it's vertical. We're going to place one there. And then we're going to manually edit this. So pull it down, pull this up, align, zoom in really close, make sure we get this little edge. This can be very detailed work. So like I said, it's really tedious. You got to make sure you get all the little pieces. But for me personally, I think the really detailed stuff is some of the funnest parts of design. Just really getting in and kind of seeing how everything is built. Also just making your models look a lot better. So, you know, you might be doing this and you might think, well, this seems kind of like a lot of work and, you know, what's the point? But if you go this extra mile and you really build in some of this nice detail to your models, it can really make things look a lot better. Now, I don't recommend doing this everywhere, obviously. If you're going to build this stuff out, like I'm doing here in a lot of detail, only focus on the areas that are going to be seen in a rendering, okay? Don't overmodel. So you don't want to put too much detail because one, it's time consuming, and two, it's really going to bog down your Revit file, all right? So you just really want to keep it to a minimum, only where you need to do it, okay? Because you wouldn't want to do this everywhere, it would take forever. But as you can see, that detail, like I said, with those budding in the corner, that detail is buried and it just looks like a clean line right there in the corner, so you don't really have to worry about it. Okay, so then we're just gonna switch to a front view and copy these where they need to go. So again, zooming in, copy. You can also switch your view if you want. So right now I'm working in the 3D view, and I have this presentation view template on it that has shadows and stuff in a realistic setting. But if you wanted to, you could turn off this view template and just tweak the settings and maybe turn off the shadows, and maybe that would help you if it is a little bit hard to place how you want. All right, so then we're just going to keep copying across here. And you can even set this to multiple in the copy tool to make this a little bit easier on yourself. So I can copy it there, and then I know I'm going to have to make the same copy here, so I can just go all the way over and copy it there as well to save some time. Then I can go to this one and, well, let me see here. Yeah, I can go to this one and do the same thing, so copy, and I don't really have to do multiple in this case because I've already done one of them. Put one there, and let me see, I don't want to put one there now. I'm just going to place it there and I'm going to move it. So I'm going to get the very edge here, and I want to move the edge of this all the way over to where this gray is, like that. Then we're just going to finish this up on the final section of the wall here. Oh, we do need one more. I want to put one here in the middle. So let's just again go to a flat view and copy. Now this time when we copy it, we're going to find the midpoint of the molding. You see, that doesn't... Okay, I guess that's the midpoint right there. I'm going to copy that from the midpoint, and I'm going to find the midpoint now of this molding above it. So you should be able to get a snap here in the center. If not, you can just eyeball it, get it pretty close. That'll be fine. So now you can see these panel widths look pretty consistent across, all the way across the wall, which is pretty good. So then lastly, again, we're going to do a CS, do the final section of wall here. And I'm going to, for this, switch to my section, or go to my level 1 view. I'm going to grab this section, I'm going to pull it over to the right, and I'm just going to flip this across, and I'm going to work in a section view here because it's a little bit maybe easier for this part. Let's see, we're going to need to pull this down. Now, something about this wainscoting is you might get some odd behavior. So you can see in this case, I'm kind of getting this where it's not actually being cut correctly by the section, and it's making it a little bit tricky. So I'm just going to grab this piece and I'm going to move it all the way to the right so I can get it placed in that corner where I want it. Then let me see if I go back here to my 3D view and pull my section box a little bit. I might just pull my section box all the way out here like that, and then click on this wall and hide it. It's probably going to be my easiest way, so we will hide and view elements. That'll be fine. And then I can come in and I can manually place this where I need to go. So we'll do our alignments. Here we got to pull this up, and then we'll align it here and align it there. Gonna make this section a little bit shorter. So there you can see it's kind of, I'm not sure why it does that, but this wainscoting, at least on mine, it might be different on yours. Maybe it's because I'm using an older version of Revit, but for some reason it's not like cutting it out when I do the section box. So if it is for you, then good. But for me, it's kind of doing some like weird stuff here. So then coming in here, and I'm going to copy this all the way to the right. Until I hit my gray face here. Then we're going to, let's see, copy. I'm going to get this edge. And then one more. There we go. Then if you remember back to these other ones, oh shoot, we didn't put it, yeah, so we're gonna have to add a little bit under these windows too. Since we're on this wall right now, let's just put one there. So wall sweep, horizontal, throw one right there, grab this, let's shrink it down so that it's within this panel, and then we will align again to our little edges here. So one there and one there. Then right here, click escape, click enter, do one there and then one there, and then we're gonna have to again move this vertically. So we can click on that. Kind of at a weird angle, so it really helps to move if you're totally flat. If you try to move in a 3D perspective, sometimes it gets kind of weird. So we'll go back to flat view, we'll move it straight up, just like that. And then I'm just gonna toggle back to this front face, and I'm just gonna add in my two little ones that need to go underneath of my windows here. So we'll just click on one CS, set it to horizontal, place it about right there. Then we should just be able to do one and copy it to the right. So shrink that down, and then we will drag this until it aligns, drag it until it aligns, and then move vertically. And now I can copy, and I'm just going to find a midpoint on this window, and I'm going to copy it to the right to the midpoint on this window here, and it should line up exactly. All right, so that is basically it for the wainscoting. The final thing we need to do, again, is fix that little problem I pointed out. So you can see this is kind of doing some weird stuff, right? So to fix this, what we want to do is open up our rail profile. So we're going to go to File, Open, and then again, if you have it in the recent documents, go ahead and just click on Wainscoting Rail, open that. So just go ahead and stay in here. I'm going to toggle back really quick and kind of, again, point out the issues. Okay, so if you look really closely, if I can get to an edge here. So there are two issues. The first issue is this top arch right here. Okay. Then the bottom issue, or the other issue, is this tiny little arch right here. So if you do this and you see these like invisible faces, you just have to figure out which faces are invisible, which sections of the profile are causing that. Then you know that you only have to replace those two little line segments, okay? So that makes it not too hard to fix. So I'm gonna, again, find that. All right, I'm gonna delete one half of this, so I'll delete the bottom half. Then I'm gonna come in here. So the two faces we need to fix are this and this. So to fix my top one, what I wanna do is go to Create and then go to Line, and then let me think here. I don't think this end radius will work correctly. Let's just do, actually let's try it. Let's do this end radius arc. Click on this point, then click on this point, and then I'm just gonna, yeah, that'll be fine. I'm just gonna drag this until it is roughly in line with this. Something like here will be good, because if you go too far, this starts to curve upward a little bit too much. So maybe something in here where this is a little bit more tangent is good. Then we can delete out this weird original line that we had. So that should fix that piece. The last piece is this right here. Let's go ahead and delete that. And then let's just add, let's see. Well, no, I'll leave it so I can trace it. Let's we're gonna have to do this here. So if you find that endpoint, if you click on spline and find that endpoint, you can click there. Then just add like 1 point in the middle and then click down here. Then click escape a couple times. Click on this new line we've made and kind of just pull this out roughly where it needs to go. Maybe pull it out there, delete the original, and then grab this again and kind of pull it back a little bit. I believe that should fix the issue. So now if we highlight this top half and then mirror, we're going to mirror that across the midpoint there, and that's going to complete it. Now let's just load, well, let's save it, load it back into the project, and see if it, when we click on overwrite, see if this will fix it. So let's click overwrite the existing version, and there you go. So you can see now it has filled that in correctly and we don't get those weird little errors. And in the corners, this looks like a nice little miter. All right. Sometimes, depending on the molding profile as well, you can actually click on these and join them together. But I think in this case, if I do that, yeah, see, it's going to give me an error. So that's why we just kind of overlap them. But it doesn't look too bad. And even if you were to produce like a presentation like elevation, something like this, or just a flat 2D elevation, you can see everything actually looks pretty nice. So it's not bad. All right, so that is basically how we're going to be doing the molding. So that's kind of the workflow that you can use. If you can find a better workflow, go ahead and use that. But this is what I have used professionally, and this has worked really well for me. So if you ever have projects in the future where you have all this complicated molding that you need to recreate and you don't have any idea how to do it, this will hopefully greatly help you. The wall sweep tool is a pretty cool tool. I guess while you're watching this, I'm just going to show you a couple other things. So here is the wall reveal tool. That is very similar to the wall sweep, except it does the opposite. So instead of putting something on the wall, it actually subtracts out of the wall. So if I was just to use this default shape here and then click escape, you can see when I put a reveal in, it's actually cutting a niche back into the wall. Okay, and you could click on this and then click on add walls, and you could add as many walls to this as you want. So I could click on this one next and just keep it going, and it's going to create this like recessed cove into the wall, which is pretty cool. And this is also neat because you can move them up and down where you want them to go. But you're not going to use those nearly as much as you're going to use the wall sweeps. To finish this off, what I'm going to want you to do is produce a similar view to what we did for lab 4. So just to recap, the way that we're going to do that is we're going to go to our floor plan, and then I'm going to delete out this section view, and I'm going to create a new view. So if I go to section, we got to do it from left to right. Create a section there. Then I'm going to move my section view until it is aligned closely with this wall right here. So something like this is fine. You just want it to sit barely in front of this bottom wall so that you get basically the whole room within the section. So if you toggle to this and you can see this wall in here just fine, then that's going to be good. So then what you want to do is go to, let's see if I can find it, your 3D views, and then let's see here. Let's right click on 3D and then click duplicate view, and we'll just duplicate that. Then you can right click this again, rename that, and we'll call this section perspective. Okay, and then let me think here. Nope, I'm wrong. We don't want to do that. All right, scratch that. Let's delete that out. Let's go to our floor plan again and use the camera tool. So we're going to go up here at the top. We're going to click on camera. We're going to click down here at the bottom somewhere, and we're just going to drag our camera straight up all the way through. And I'm going to expand this until I see all 4 sides of my wall. Okay, and then we're going to right click on our view cube up here, and we're going to click on orient to view, and we're going to set this to section 1. Once we have that, then we're going to go here over to the left. We're going to click on section box, then we're going to click on apply. Once we've added in the section box, this is the section box on the outside right here. So here's our walls and everything. Here's the section box. We're going to use these middle grips, and we're going to find the one that controls the edge that's closest to us. So that is not it. It's going to be this one here. So we want to drag this inward and outward. Sometimes this can be tricky. Drag it inward until you get it cutting through the wall into the building. Let's see, so that's maybe a little bit too much. Bring it back a little bit. So actually, something that you can do to get these lined up perfectly is while you are dragging this and you have this selected as blue, if you just switch to the level 1 floor plan, you can see where that sits in a floor plan view. So that's a little bit easier. So now you can grab that and you can drag it, and you can basically get it super close to this front edge right here, basically where the section is. So you can release it. Then if you go back to that 3D view, it should be pretty good. So now you can see everything looks pretty nice, and we don't have our trim like weirdly extending out into space. All right, so then once we're here, we can turn on our view, or our view template. So actually I'm gonna hide my section box. I'm gonna click on it, then right click, and then choose hide in view elements. And then I'm going to go to, let's see, the view and choose View Template and switch that to Architectural Presentation 3D. Click Apply, and there's my nice little 3D section perspective. So this is going to be what you will submit. All right. You want to basically submit an entire screen cap of Revit that shows this view exactly as I have it here. Okay. I guess one other thing that I'm going to want you to do, and you can just do this along with me right now, let's add in some 3D model text so that we can confirm this is yours. Under here, under Edit Text, we'll click on Model Text, Edit Text, put your name. Okay, and then let's just click on our wall up here, and let's see if that'll, if we can get it to place correctly. Might have to do this in my elevation. Try it again. Or 3D. We just got a 3D view. Model text. Let's see, Kellen Roth. Oh, I see. So if you can't get the model text to place right in 3D view, if you click on show here, this is going to show you the plane it's wanting to place on, and you can see it's wanting to place this flat on the floor. Click here where it says set. Okay, so this is another new tool that you can use. I use this tool a lot for things. If you click on set, then you choose pick a plane, click OK, and then you click tab. Let's see. It might be easier if you go to the top here. If you hover over this edge and click on tab until you get the face of your wall, so right there I have it, click once. That'll switch the placement plane. So now the plane is flat on that wall. All right, and then I'm going to uncheck show so that that goes away. But let me see. Now if I try to place model text like that, there we go. It's going to let me place it on the wall. Okay. So let me go back to my 3D view, and now my 3D view I can kind of zoom in and I can just center this up, get this somewhere on the wall, and that'll be just fine. Okay, so something like that, and then we can even, if we want to go so far as to uncrop the crop on that so that that goes away. And you can even, pretty cool, you can click your middle mouse button and pan this around to kind of change the perspective. But yeah, that'll do it. So let's put this model text in, set up this 3D view like this, and then you're just going to screen cap your entire Revit screen, turn this in, and then you are also going to turn in the Revit project file itself. So save this and turn in the Revit project file. Now I'm going to keep the video going just a little bit longer for people who want to do the extra credit. So I'm going to give up to 5 points of extra credit for this, just like I did for the last assignment, if you want to produce a rendering and turn that in as well. So I'm going to show you how to do something in Enscape. If you have Enscape, I'm just going to kind of show you what this kind of looks like, tweak the materials and stuff. So if you want to stick around and watch the rest of this, you can. If not, you can peace out and you can finish working on this, just how it is, and turn in what I just told you to. All right, so for the people who want to stay, I'm going to, let's see, go back to my default 3D view, and we're going to do a couple little things here. So I'm going to show you how to put in a little bit nicer of a wood flooring material. Okay, so let's go back to our material editor, manage materials, and then the flooring that I have in there now is called oak, I believe. So if I type in oak, you're going to see this oak flooring pop up, and we're going to click on that, and just like we did on the other material, we're going to swap out its asset. So we're going to click replace asset here, just choose the default ABS white, that's one I like to use. Then once that's done, we're going to swap in the new textures. So I've also uploaded these textures just like the plaster ones. So we're going to click on that little thing and click on image. Then the one we're going to use is the Parquet Wood Mahogany base color for the base image. We're going to tweak the reflectance down a bit, turn up the roughness a bit so that this is a little bit duller and more like a regular wood. Then we're going to use the relief pattern. So we'll click on that, and then we want to set this one to be the height. All right. So when you set that to be the height, that again is going to make this look a little bit more realistic. Then what we need to do is edit the scale of this texture. So we're going to click on here again and then choose edit image. And you can see this is set to a 1 foot by 1 foot. That's way too small. Click on link texture transformations, and this is going to link the changes we make here to this texture to the relief pattern automatically. So we're not really going to have to go in and mess with it. So now if I click on where it says sample size and change this to 5 feet here, and also, yeah, these are linked together, so that should change automatically. Then we can just click done. And you can see now this looks a lot better, and if I wanted to, I could click on the edit image under relief pattern, and you can see this automatically changed to 5 feet for me. Another thing we have here is the depth setting. So right now it's set to 1 inch. That might be a little bit too much. Maybe I'll pull that back to 1/2 inch, and we'll see what that looks like once we render it, but you can always come back in and tweak that a little bit if you need to. All right, so now just click apply and then click OK, and that's going to make my wood flooring texture look a little bit nicer. So now that is put into place how I want it. So that looks quite a bit nicer in my, my 3D view. Now, something else we can do while we're in here is we can optionally go into our ceiling plan, and we can put in a couple of can lights. So maybe I will just do that really quickly. Let's go to the level 1 ceiling plan, and then we're gonna have to import some ceiling lights. So we'll just click insert, load family. We're going to, let me see if I can find my default Revit families. See Imperial Library, and then lighting, architectural, internal, and then I'm going to use one of my can lights. You can use whatever you want. You don't really even have to put in lighting if you don't want to, because if you're cutting a section in the rendering anyway, then it's going to look fine either way. But if you're not doing a section, you might have to put some lighting in. So let's see, downlight recess can is what I want. So now I'm going to place these. And we'll just put a couple of them, you know, sort of in the center of the room. So I'll just put like one here and one here, and then I can use my annotate detail line, and I'm going to cut this space in half, and I'm going to cut this in half again. Now you can see, because we made this molding, all this crown molding, it gets in the way and it's hard to change things. Okay, so usually when you're doing a set of CDs, you want to turn off wall sweeps in your view templates. So if you have a view template applied with like a floor plan or a ceiling plan, you want to go in there to your visibility graphics override. So if I pull this up, under model categories, you want to scroll down until you find walls, expand that, and then you're going to see wall sweeps. You want to uncheck that and click apply, and then those are going to go away so that you can actually work on what you want. Then I'm also going to just turn off model text while I'm in here, if I can find it. Oh, I guess I can't. I'll just leave it. I can just hide this in the view manually. There we go. So now that I've done that, I can pretty easily find where these lights need to go. So now I can move this to the center of this line, wherever that exists. So it's right about there, and I can mirror it across. Get rid of this one, don't need it. Then I'll just get rid of my detail lines, and there we go. Now we have some lighting in there. And what I like to do is kind of edit the material on this a little bit. So I'm going to click Edit Type on one of those lights, and I'm just going to set the finish on the shade to be, the trim paint will be fine. So anything that's like a whitish color will work. They'll just make it look a little bit nicer. So trim paint, and that should be good. So now what I'm going to do is load up Enscape, and you'll be able to see what this looks like when it's rendered in Enscape. So here I am inside of Enscape. After tweaking a few of the visual settings, this is what I have ended up with. So it's looking pretty decent here. So if you're using Enscape and you just want to get an idea of how I sort of got to this point, here are my visual settings that I used. So I'll quickly just go through the tabs, and then if you want to try to recreate this, you can if you're using Enscape as well. But I'll just click through these, and you can see the settings that I've toggled on here. And then what I really ended up doing is I just pulled my view in. So you can see here I have my section perspective view, and I have just zoomed it in, set the view setting to a 2-point perspective, and then I've changed the time of day as well to get the sunlight coming in through the windows. So if you're not sure how to change time of day, the shortcut for that is holding Shift and then clicking the right mouse button and dragging left to right. So as I do that, you can see my time of day is shifting here. Let me turn my overlay back on really quick so you can see that. See me doing it there. So you can see I'm holding those buttons, and then as I'm dragging, the time of day is changing. Alright, so that'll be it for the video. Just want to give you a few little tips and tricks here in case you are working on renderings or using Enscape and you want some ideas of how you can make them maybe look a little bit better. Another thing to note here, you might, if you're ever using lighting, you might want to go in here and inside the Revit model, change the intensity on the lighting. That will help to make it just look a little bit better in the rendering. So just up the default number that's there within the power setting. But other than that, that's about it. If you have any questions, if there's anything that you want help with, just let me know.